What's up, good people? Back with another episode of the Gamers Discussion. And once again, I am joined by my good friend, Timothy Smith. Tim, you want to introduce yourself to the people who might be watching and or listening?
Hi, everybody. This is Michael Smith at Mykale Smith. Nice to
Yeah.
meet you again.
Yes, that is his social media handle on most platforms. Mine is, of course, Antonius the Gamer. There'll be links in all the descriptions of everywhere on every platform. But today, with no further delay, we are here to talk about one, the current nature of fighting games and where the fighting game market is headed going to this next gen, as well as Sony's recent acquirement of Evo. So I figure we'll start off with the bigger announcement in the room, which is Sony's acquirement of Evo. Sony announced that they are now a shareholder in the or the majority shareholder of Evo.
Believe- I believe that's how the story went.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, in my opinion, it makes sense
Mm-hmm.
because I remember during the Xbox 360 and the PS3 era that the most used system was Xbox 360 in terms of like the esports scene, shooters, things of that nature. But as the PS3 started to gain some like momentum towards the end of its cycle, and then the way how Sony was swinging all the way through PS4, that tide has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of the fighting game community mostly uses PS4s, and even in terms of shooting tournaments, it's PS4 again. So in terms of like where this tournament and how it was going is basically saying like it's an addition to Sony, or it just makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. Sony making that move. Sony's like you could tell Sony's trying to become the new Disney in a
Mm-hmm.
sense of the things that they've been acquiring from Funimation to Crunchyroll to now Evo as well. They're basically saying like this is Sony Entertainment.
Right. They're trying to be a one-stop service to a certain degree. And that's the vibe I got from them acquiring Evo as well. Um, Now, because my thing about monopolies and just talking about those in that aspect, do you feel like some people have expressed online, do you feel like this is Sony's first or one of many steps to them becoming a monopoly? Is there a point in Evo history where now Nintendo and even Microsoft have to go do their own thing because Smash Brothers is no longer invited to the Evo tournament?
For starters, I don't think Sony is that petty.
Okay.
I don't think Sony is that petty because at the end of the day, they're really more in tune with what their fans want as of now. Well, half and half, I should say. I wouldn't say fully. I would say like a good 75%
Mm-hmm.
in fans say. Like Smash Brothers, like even though that's basically Nintendo's flagship fighter for decades, that's never gonna disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Never gonna disappear because there is such a hardcore fan base that has PlayStation, that has Xbox, that just loves Smash Brothers just because of their childhood upbringing. So I don't feel that's gonna leave. Now, in terms of Microsoft's sort of kind of flagship fighter, which was Killer Instinct, which I kind of still feel that was very weird that they made it exclusive only to Xbox.
Right. And then abandon it, which is
That that was very, very weird. And I don't really see. Shoot, to be honest, I don't even know who the developer is, but I'll look that up in the future. But like, I would think that that is something that they definitely would go multi-platform with in the future.
mhm.
So, but honestly, I do feel like it was needed. Like I said, it made sense for Sony on their half of the half of the game. But I do still feel that everything will be fine. Like
Mhm.
the show will continue.
I agree. I think, if there's a place to look for exclusivity, Evo wouldn't be it for Sony. I think it actually gives them more PR points and gives them more goodwill with the people by keeping it open to other consoles and what they might offer. And hopefully, at some point, Microsoft remembers that they bought exclusive rights to the Kill Instinct IP. That will also make a return to Evo in some degree. To me, I think honestly, I think it could be a good thing, especially for the future of gaming and gamers, right? Where it's like, Sony likes to make a spectacle in a lot of good ways, right? So I'm like, this could be the ramp up that Evo needs to become, you know, a more worldwide acknowledged event, right? Where like it kind of breaks the barriers of just being restricted to the gaming community, right? Like if it becomes more accessible, say from now you can watch Evo live off your PlayStation 4 or 5, You
True.
know, why not? You know,
And
why not?
even as of lately, in terms of like the YouTube tournaments that Sony has been having, like via YouTube, Twitch, of all the latest fighting games like Soul Calibur, Blaze Blue, Street Fighter. Like I said, it literally makes sense. Like you don't see Microsoft doing those things.
Mhm.
And then so like I said, like and when the announcement, like yes, it was a shocker to everybody, but it literally in this date of time, it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolute sense.
yeah. I do think that it was the right move for Sony. I think there's been jokes I've seen of like the Sony head sort of like buy any and buy everything, buy whatever you can. I'm like I think this actually makes sense for them. Like I think this
Mm,
is a good move that will uh pay itself off for them over time in a lot of big ways. And I'm definitely excited to how Evo will work with Sony being the major shareholder, especially when like outside is fully open, and we can have tournaments in person again, what that
yeah.
will look like for the community. Um, but to segue from that, because that is the second topic for us, is what does this mean, you think, for fighting games in general, or how do you feel that both the Evo announcement and kind of like what we've been seeing lately with what seems to be companies focusing more and more on fighters again. It seems like the fighting game generation is back, so to speak. How do you feel about how that's been holding up over this current console generation and what it looks like moving forward?
Well, to be honest, I feel this console generation in terms of fighters was half and half.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain the good side of things, there were certain franchises that came back and they came back very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the games, this was like the best version of them yet. And I'll give an example of, the latest Soul Calibur. And I spoke with this through text. Like this has been the best Soul Calibur has been since Soul Calibur 2 on the PlayStation 2, bro.
Mm-hmm.
This has been the best. Like, yes, DLC wise, there was a lot of classic characters that kind of turned me off from buying it at first. But Sony been hitting me with them deals back and forth, like, oh, you get the Ultimate Edition for like $17. But
Mm-hmm.
but then, ever since then, it's just that I really saw like how Namco had really leveled up in terms of like Tekken, Soul Calibur as well. Like they have really polished up their game.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like, Arc System Works, like, their greatest one was Dragon Ball Z. And, that ended off on a very powerful note. So I
Mm-hmm.
still feel like in the next season not coming. I still feel it.
Okay, we can talk
But,
about that too.
but overall, and then, in terms of, SNK's return, Samurai Showdown, and even in terms of where they left off with King of Fighters 14, now they're entering into 15. And of course, the recent, well, I can't say semi-recent announcement that Virtual Fighter is coming back.
Mm. I
We
think.
don't, we don't know if it's a reboot or just a continuation, but that brings Sega back into the fold, bro. Because I
Mm.
think Sega looking at everybody like, yo, like, so we bringing everything back now? Okay. They
Yeah.
had they had a little teaser trailer, so we just waiting on news from that. And so, man, like fighting games are looking beautiful right now, bro. Yes, they are some of the hardest games to play trophy wise, but I love them.
I mean, I love them too. I've been a big fan of fighting games. I think what really won me over to fighting games was the PlayStation 1 era. We got so many flagship games that would then spawn on, like the first Marvel vs. Capcom came to PlayStation. All the Marvel team ups essentially are on PlayStation. What we talked about last week, Rival Schools was on PlayStation. There was a lot of fighting games that came to the original PlayStation. Tekken, all three Tekkens were on PlayStation 1. You
Yes.
know, so I've been a fan of fighters for a long time, and it's interesting to me because I felt like there was a time where fighters seemed to be dying because they became such a niche audience, right? Where it's like if you weren't a hardcore fighting game player, there was nothing for you. If you
Mhm.
weren't willing to spend hours in the lab, so to speak, learning combo strings and block strings and parries and things like that, and reversal mechanics, you know, go find something else to play, basically. And I think it's interesting because like I'm wondering now that there's such a push to have a fighting game resurgence, right? And like you said, like Arc Systems Dragon Ball Fighters was such a unique blend of allowing hardcore gamers to get their hardcore mechanics off, while also allowing us casual fans to still enjoy the game of like, yo, you can kind of like auto combo your way to victory most times, depending on who you're fighting against. Um, I'm curious to see how some of these other companies will or will not adapt to, the the reinterest of a more casual audience like yourself and I, right? Like I've seen some people comment about how the new Guilty Gear Strive, right? Like people who play the beta, they're like, oh, like the combos seem too easy. Like it seems easier in comparison to previous Guilty Gears.
Um, okay, like to me, the auto combo system, I don't see a problem with it because there's still a sense of level of depth even within that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know certain developers won't adapt to that, and I'll give an example like Street Fighter. Street Fighter was never a very combo street type of game. It's more of the gotcha. Like, like just say if you try to rush the character, oh, here's an uppercut.
Mm.
Or like, here's a backhand slap like to the other side of the ring. But it was never that like boom, 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 15 hits. Like it was never like that.
Right, the touch
So
of death type thing.
I don't see a game like Street Fighter adapting that. Now in a game sort of like Tekken, that would intrigue me because like look at like grapple characters like King and Armor King, Craig Marduk, like or even like very more lightning fist type style characters like Jin, like and Kazuya, like that would really shock me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the Under Night in Birth developer on the other day, they announced their new game, which is one of their older titles, which is on getting another like installation called Melty Blood. It's
Mm-hmm.
called Melty Blood Type Lumina. And they've hinted that the auto combo system is going to be integrated into this game as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I do foresee that like that's going to be the new thing as of late. Because before the latest thing was to let's sell you all classic characters through season passes. But yeah, hopefully that doesn't enter the new generation. But I'm looking forward to what to see what the auto combo system could do. I
Yeah,
am really looking forward to because one thing about fighting games is that people want to feel like that they're doing damage, bro.
exactly. Exactly.
People want to feel like, yo, I murked this dude.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there's even a depth to that. Like, cause like I even look at fighters, bro. Like I've seen like Ultra Instinct Goku's just get wasted by Master Roshi's and Krillin, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And but it goes to show you, like, yes, he has a lot of gimmicks, but that these people have learned the ins and outs of their auto combo streams. That if you block, I'm gonna hit you with the Hypno Fist. If you jump, I'm gonna hit you with the Lightning Thunder Shock Surprise.
Right.
Solar Flare, and then take them 5 destructive discs, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people learn. So like in the sense, like I don't fear it. I don't fear it at all. And even get certain games of like the older Arc System Works games, trust me, bro, like those games were very technical, dog.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very technical. They tried the first time they ever tried it was with Blaze Blues Central Fiction, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't called the auto combo system. Like they had like it was called technical and stylish. Technical was the old way of things. Stylish was more of the, to be honest, bro, like I believe Marvel vs.
Yeah.
Capcom 2 had
Oh,
that.
Marvel's Capcom 3 did that. They had like
Oh,
a version of the auto combo as well, where it's like you don't get to do everything, but you can kind of like mash quote unquote your way to really cool looking stuff.
because I remember playing with Akuma, bro, and I could swear I pressed like 2 buttons. Next thing you know, here comes a super.
Yeah,
That,
yeah,
but I like the auto combo system. I love it. It's flashy. It makes me feel like I'm doing something. That's less stress on my controller. Boom.
I agree. I think the auto combo or the greater acceptance of the auto combo allows room for both worlds, right? Where it's like for people like us who aren't going to sit there learning combo strings and things like that, like it still allows us to have fun, right? And if we want to get deep, it's always there, right? We can always pick up the combo strings if need be. I think moving away from the necessity, like you said, of like older fighting games of you either learn how to play like this or you would get stomped out in every single match ever. Like it's not enticing. It doesn't make you want to play a game. If I'm just like, if I have to learn this before I get touched of death every single time I hop online, I think it's good. And I think the beautiful thing about it is that there's still room to grow, right? Where it's like you look at our system and especially what they're looking to do with the auto combo or what they could do. And it's like maybe in the future it isn't just square, 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 or triangle, triangle, triangle. Maybe it's like a square, square, down square, 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 up square. Like there's ways that you can kind of like build on the depth of what seems like a quote unquote simple input that allows it to be competitive for other people.
You
Um,
you know what kind of reminds me of an auto combo system, but then like you said, it's shifting into variants, like you said, the Storm series.
yes.
Remember, like, circle, circle, then you press up, and then next thing you know, you do a whole different combo,
Mhm.
things of that nature. Next thing you know, you end it off with a 30 hit combo.
Right. The problem with the storm system though is that there was nothing deeper than that. I think that was the issue. Like you could do those things, right? Like you could vary your auto combo, but after that, after you do your circle, circle, circle up, circle, circle down, it's like that's it. Either you knock them in the air for air combo, or you knock them on the ground so you can back up and charge chakra. I think that's why it got a lot of like flack in that regard.
Yeah, and I feel like that's like, in terms of where like mostly like 3D fighters are gonna have some issues with.
Mhm.
But the whole 2.5 ones, I do feel that that's something that they could adopt very, very easily. So yeah, I mean, we'll see in the coming future.
Yeah. How do you feel about, in to talk about what you talked about earlier, how do you feel about, fighting games now having season threes and in some cases even season four passes? Something that's been relatively unheard of for fighting games for quite some time. You usually don't see past a season two.
I'm looking forward to it because I've realized, especially with my current library of games, I would like a developer to, have a fighting franchise and not in a sense like run it down through the whole life cycle,
Mhm.
but at least like a good majority of it. Because I look back at like Tekken, for example,
Mhm.
and the way all the way up to season 4, and I actually like it.
Mhm.
I actually like it. Season Street Fighter, not so much because of how they just ripped us off,
Mhm.
but I'm looking forward to more longevity in terms of fighters, like how they basically said, like, for Mortal Kombat, we're giving it another year of support. Still waiting to see what we get,
Right.
but I'm liking that factor. Like even now, like, after the release of Snyder Cut, Young Justice 2 has been getting more characters playing online in terms of, trying out new combos, switching up their costumes to look like the characters in the movies.
Mhm.
So I mean, I'm looking really forward to that. I am really looking forward to I know, for example, like Namco and Arc Systems Works, where they have multiple games under their under their brand. So like in a sense, like yeah, you might get 2 games from this developer, you might get 3 from there. But I do enjoy, as of now, the 3 year and up life cycle.
Really? Okay. I have a little bit of pushback for that actually.
Okay.
My pushback would be two things. And I'll use spiders as an example. There's been, I would say, some valid critiques, right, in terms of just general, let's just say, lifestyle changes to the game, right? Where it's like you have this game that came out in 2018, right? It's now 2021. And, you and I have talked about this to certain degrees offline, where like there's just certain things in the game, other than adding characters, that kind of need to be changed, right? And it's like, at what point, if we're now on year three, essentially, of DLC, do you now put out a sequel, right? Do you what about these 3 years of updates, other than the characters, right? Other than the assist mechanic revamp, would you
Mm.
say warrants somebody who maybe is tired of playing, the original fighters?
I would say gameplay modes for one.
But we
Uh,
haven't had gameplay modes in fighters.
I know, but like I would think definitely gameplay modes, definitely more stages
Hmm.
for one. I mean, but that's pretty much it. But I just don't want to go back to those dark ages of, you and I joke about this, about the early years of Blaze Blue. Everything after Calamity Trigger, like, oh, 2 new characters, new game.
Right,
Oh, one new character with a whole balance patch, new game.
right.
Like, I definitely don't want to go back to those dark times because, even though I followed the series, but the only game that I actually played was the final one. And of course, the tag team versus one. But I do enjoy it in that final form better
Hmm.
of, in terms of Everything could just be uploaded through DLC and a patch, bro. We don't need a whole new fucking CD no more.
I can agree with that. I mean, I think we've spoken about this in a previous video, but one of the things that I applaud NetherRealm for is like I feel like they're good when it comes to taking risks in that regard. Like I think them doing the story mode expansion for Aftermath was a
Yes.
good idea. I think it was a good idea. Like you could talk about whether or not the quality of the story mode or the changes they made were great, right? Like that's another topic in itself. But I think that's a way you add more life to a fighting game that's going to be running 3-4 years without, like you said, like dropping an entirely new product that looks and plays more or less the same as the previous product.
Yes.
Um,
You made a very good example. Like Aftermath, I really enjoyed that. And it's not something where like, all right, you're releasing like four story expansions back to back because this is not a open world RPG type game where you need something of those calibers. Like in terms of like a fighting game, yes, maybe like a certain type of epilogue or something that just gets you more teased about the actual future.
mhm,
Like, for example, the way Mortal Kombat ended, well, basically, Liu Kang is now the new head of the God Pantheon.
mhm,
I'm looking forward to what is this new world going to actually be. But then that also makes me sad about, 11 was a big, huge upgrade from X. But
mhm.
now I kind of felt like we got cheated out certain characters or because of their so-called comics and all these off-screen deaths.
Yeah.
My thing is like, all right, if you're sorry about that. If you're really gonna like develop a whole new world, like let this last one be the ultimate banger.
Mhm,
Like, where's Reptile? Where's Takeda? Where's the so-called and they made a big hype about this. The first LGBT character, which was Kung Jin.
mhm.
Like, where are these characters? And like, who told you we wanted Tanya to die off screen? What happened? What happened to Tremor? Like, this is the first time he was ever playable in a game. And I just kind of felt like we just got cheated out of. Like, and you resold us right for the
Yeah,
same.
I think that's a good point, and it actually brings me to the second thing I wanted to bring up to ask you. Right? It's like, do you feel? Because my thing is like, again, to use fighters as an example, because it's the thing I've been playing the most recently. I feel like whether or not we get a season 4, right, which I still feel like it's a possibility. It would be hard for me to look at Fighters 2 or whatever it be called and accept a roster that is less than the roster count we already have.
Facts.
Like that. I think that's the other thing that kind of worries me now about these season 3s and season 4 is like now you look at Fighters. Fighters came out as a 24 character roster, and now we have 40-ish characters,
Mm-hmm.
over the 3 years. And it's like it would be hard for me to look at Fighters 2 and be like, well, we added all these mechanics and all this and that. I'm like, yeah, but now the roster's at 30. I had 40 characters in the previous game. I expected to have more characters. Like I expected a base roster of 50. I don't care if you have to port the characters over. Like, like I don't want my character count to go down. How do you feel like fighting games can handle or not handle that? Like especially with Mortal Kombat, like how do you go into 12, you know, looking at it as if they don't go the reboot again route, how do you then justify the roster count dropping at all? Or is that something that's just not allowed going forward for these games?
Oh, that's very rocky, bro. Because I'll look at the latest Guilty Gear, for example. The latest Guilty Gear, like it has a mix of new characters and old ones from the last installment. But then I was like, damn, I realized certain people are missing, like who were like classic characters from Jump. Now I
Mm-hmm.
realize, oh, here come the DLC train.
Mm-hmm.
And but in terms of like Arc System Works, like especially with, as their Blaze Blue series started to grow, I do realize they do honor like the current what the roster looks like at the end of their last game and cross them over into the next one.
Mm-hmm.
I do see that they do honor that in terms of like they did with the Blaze Blue series. So I do hope that for the next fighters that they actually do honor that as well. I do foresee for the next fighters that they will like add in some characters that people missed but didn't really care about, like for example like Raditz, Zarbon, Dodoria, things of that nature, or even like lesser ranked characters like the Cell Juniors,
Hmm.
Deborah. I do foresee like those characters actually making a great comeback, and then of course, we'll have Tobo, we'll have probably most likely PikeCon and things of that nature. Shoot, like we might get Super 17 because it looked like, you know, in a sense of, and I get it. I thought they was going to just like, keep it only super characters, but then you saw how they added OG Broly and Super Broly, but you could tell that they're just trying to honor all eras in a
Yeah.
sense.
Hmm.
I mean, I've even heard some people like, some decent Dragon Ball characters would be nice. Like, Mercenary Tao,
Hmm.
for example. Basically, Mercenary Tao could be like what TN should have been.
Yeah.
And also another person made a good point, like Chi Chi, because there was a game that came out on PS2. I think it was called Super Dragon Ball Z, where Chi Chi had the banjo fan and she had combos of her own. People have said till this day that is the best how Chi Chi has ever been, and
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
People talk about Chi Chi. I've even seen people petitioning to have Bulma be included in a mech suit, kind of like an Emperor Pilaf style. Um,
That would actually be dope, like because she
yeah,
could be like the
hmm,
Tron Bond of like fighters. Like that would actually be very very dope, bro.
yeah. I will not
I
be mad at that at all.
mhm.
But
Okay.
but is that something that again, are we okay with? Say for example, let's just say they do a season 4, and season 4 is all bets off, right? And they start throwing in crazy ideas. Like I said, the Tron Bon Bulma, Chi Chi with the banjo fan, but those characters then don't make it into Fighters 2. You know, do we riot? Do we take to the streets? Is it something that we kind of chalk up to the nature of the fighting game? I guess the way fighting games work now.
I would definitely voice that to I would definitely voice that to the developers. The
Hmm.
only time where we should really, as of now, especially with the new trend of like certain reboots, that's where we should be afraid
Hmm.
because, that's when I see like, they're introducing classic characters like, oh, you should be thanking us. We put them in the game. Like, no. So, I mean, in terms of like, for example, like Injustice, like I was like, bro, whoever not dead from like from the story mode, they need to be in this next game.
Oh no, another realm. They like to, like you said, off-screen kill, off-screen kill a lot of characters. I'm nervous for Injustice 3. To be honest with you.
Yeah, and then I'm also nervous for like I said, the new Virtua Fighter. Like hopefully Sega doesn't follow that trend. I was like, nah, bro. Everybody who's in Virtua Fighter 5 need to be there, bro. Everybody.
But they might market it as a reboot. Like especially
True.
because Virtua Fighter has been away from the general audience for such a long period of time. Like I
Yeah,
feel like if ever there was a time to justify a reboot, it would be for that IP. Like hey, we're gonna kind of do a fresh coat of paint, start from scratch for this next gen, and kind of rebuild over time.
yeah, you're right. I mean, but like I said, bro, we will only know in time because the way, especially how these new systems are, bro, it looks like everybody's just gonna run this backwards compatibility down for a little minute.
Hmm.
To be honest, the only real big game that we got to look forward to is Guilty Gear Strive.
Right. That was gonna
And
be my. Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, Guilty Gear Strive, King of Fighters 15, and then as of now the new game from French Bread, which is Melty Blood. So like those are the really only three that we really have to look forward to.
Hmm.
Everybody else we're trying to figure out like are they adding another season pass or are they not?
Right. I was gonna say as my, I guess, closing question. Um, what do you feel like going forward if this now becomes a new trend of like multi-year season passes? Excuse me. What do you feel like is an acceptable vanilla version of a fighting game going forward? Like, what would you like to see, for these IPs as they continue to launch over the next year or so? Where you're like, all right, I mean, we're gonna build this over the next few years with DLC. What can I? What are like the bare minimums I would need as a consumer, in your opinion?
Base roster has to be 25. Base roster has to be at least 25 characters for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
25 characters for me and at least 12 stages, bro.
Hmm.
like I realized that they're starting to really cut back on stages because I get it. Like it takes a lot of art design to develop those things, especially since a lot of new stages now are like interactables.
Mhm.
You could do stuff within it and all that other stuff. But yes, like I need my stages, bro. I like pretty stages. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. That last Tekken stage with the island arena, I love that. Like yeah, I'm gonna buy that. I'm buying that soon.
I think for me, I think we talked about this before too, but I think there has to be a respectable amount of offline content. I think that's where some of these games have kind of like slacked in that meeting that middle ground of like fan service versus hardcore gamers, where it's like hardcore gamers, obviously they're looking to test their metal online, right? And really go online and see how good they are with what they've been practicing. But like some of us, like for me, like I told you, like I don't really care about online. Like I don't care about, getting, I don't know, Super Saiyan God ranked, whatever on fighters. Like I wanna, play with my character roster that I've been practicing to fight the computer. But it all my only options are either versus or arcade for 3 years. Like there's nothing really for me to invest in, again, at least in a vanilla version of the game. So I feel like I agree with the roster, maybe not 25. That seems that seems like ambitious. I'm like, it would depend on the developer for sure.
Yeah,
Um, but I would say at least a roster of 15 for me personally, maybe 20. 15 to 20 characters and a bevy of offline content. Maybe not a story, but some type of a unique arcade. I like what NetherRealm has done with like their like King of the Hill esque challenges, where like each stage offers like a new thing. Like this stage you'll fight, I don't know, Shang Tsung, but you're getting missiles blown at you at the same time. So it kind of adds some type of like
hmm
different, gameplay style change for offline.
okay.
Just something that allows me to engage with the game outside of an online format.
Okay, no, I definitely understand that. Especially in terms of when I was playing like Under Night, they had a survival mode as well, what I really enjoyed. They
Mm-hmm.
had simple arcade, they had versus. But then I enjoy offline modes like that, like survival, to
Mm-hmm.
really see like how far that you could really go until the computer just knocked you out. So I enjoy things like that, or like in terms of like time attack mode,
Right.
and like how many enemies can you clear within a certain amount of time. So those are good things, and even in terms of
Raid bosses are cool too. I forgot to add that.
what like Injustice did, like they had what was it called, the multiverse, where you just basically, it was similar to like how they did like the tower systems in MK,
Mm,
where you go to multiple worlds. There's certain factors that you got to face while fighting these characters on certain difficulty levels. So I do feel like that adds a certain level of depth.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see, right? Time will tell what um becomes a new standard. I do feel in terms of like sequels, right? So when we do inevitably get Street Fighter 6, right? I wholeheartedly agree with you in terms of roster strength, where like the roster cannot be below a certain level. Like I don't care what new mechanics you spent time developing. Like you could do V Trigger Ultimate. Like I don't care. I don't need a roster of 20 characters because you spent all your development time on a new mechanic. Um, yeah. What about you? Like, what do you feel about sequels going forward into the next gen? What do you feel like that would be for you? I guess like you're non-negotiable.
Like I said, bro, like depending for me, it's mostly characters. Like characters, that's what really sells me. Characters, stages, and then like even like how you said, like certain offline modes, because I'm not really an online person as well. I mean, I have like experience like online with like friends, like we have like a closed room, things of that nature. But those are my three top things. Like, and that's what makes me look forward. And then of course, like new gameplay mechanics that you could actually build off of.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think we've covered everything, right? Evo, season passes, fighting game standards. Any kind of closing comments?
Well, all I know is, bro, like especially with this last Tekken character that was released, like, and there was a comment that somebody made that I really enjoyed. they said like, yes, this reminds me like of a Virtua Fighter character, and
Hmm.
I'm really, like, I am really looking forward to Virtua Fighter's return.
Okay.
Me and family members of mine, like we played the hell out of 4 and 5,
Hmm.
like for years. So I really am looking forward to that game's return.
Okay. I would say for my closing comment that I know that there's going to be a lot of scrambling from these companies for our attention as consumers, right? Like, come buy this King of Fighters 15, come buy, Tekken 7, like all these different fighting game IPs, right? That they want us to invest in. I would say my closing comment is please, please, developers, do not forget about the crossover appeal. Do not forget about putting Ryu in Mortal Kombat, or putting like, don't forget about again, the fan service, in the sense of like, we want to see y'all all collab. Like, it doesn't have to go to like which singular fighting IP is the best. Like, that crossover thing is still cool. People still really enjoy being able to take fighters from different IPs in a different style of fighting game.
Which Namco did pretty good. Namco did some really pretty good crossovers, from SNK characters to the
Mhm.
Final Fantasy character to even Negan of Walking Dead, bro.
Right,
Like like Namco really went like, yeah, like everybody loved Akuma because we finally got our Tekken Cross Street Fighter fix that
right,
we get. Like, to be honest, I don't even want that game no more. Akuma was fine.
right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like everyone can take a page from Namco's book. Like, keep that going, please. Like, keep the crossover. Like, at some point, I would love for Capcom to take Marvel vs. Capcom seriously again. And keep the cross. Like, there's part of the appeal of Super Smash Brothers, right, is the fact that you get to play from different IPs, and I don't think Nintendo needs to be the flagship runner for that anymore. Like,
Oh, they definitely don't. But I will say this, bro. Like, the way Disney's acting right now, bro, Marvel is gonna be held. I mean, who knows? Maybe they might outsource it to NetherRealm. Maybe we might get a Marvel fighter one day. I mean, that does seem like, especially with the success of Injustice, I do foresee other superhero universes that they will, like, probably send that check over to them.
mhm,
But time will tell.
I agree. But until then, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for who either listen and or watch us all the way through. Really appreciate your viewing eyes and ears, and your support and your comments. Again, you can make sure to follow us at our individual accounts, which I'll have listed on the video itself. But until then, thank you guys for tuning in for another DaGamer's discussion. I've been Antonius DaGamer, joined by my friend Tim, aka Mikkel Smith, and see you guys next time.
Yeah.